Stephen Marsh was born 20 years after the end of British Steam. His memories are of a much more modern railway scene. This amiable Yorkshireman tells his story of the more recent era. What were his early recollections?
So in around about 1993, we used to have an exciting tea out, and then we'd go and park ourselves by the East Coast Main Line so I could watch trains. And I think this is where the interest really started. Early 90s, there were plenty of things on the East Coast Main Line, like the Intercity 125, the HSTs. The Class 91s were fairly new as well, so I had a nice introduction to them. But then there were also bits and pieces of freight around, so there were things like Class 86s pulling mail trains and all kinds of bits and pieces like that. But I soon found that the HSTs were my very, very sort of favourite train, because they had an absolutely iconic sound. The Paxman Valenta engine scream was just, there's absolutely nothing else like it at all. That really, really took me from an early age. We continued that tradition of going to Bamborough and to the Northumberland. And then when we went in the year 2000, I brought with me a tape recorder. And I started recording the sounds of trains in August 2000. Obviously, I wasn't old enough then probably to have been trusted with a video camera, so the sounds of trains on cassette tapes would do, because recording and editing is actually another one of my sort of passions. So it fitted in nicely with that. The following year, 2001, is when I got my first film camera for my 13th birthday. And of course, that then opened a whole new set of doors, which meant I could actually start taking pictures of trains. And it was around about sort of this time when I started taking numbers and making notes of workings and locations and bits and pieces like that. I was completely the odd one out in my school because nobody else in the year liked trains. It was only me. I didn't really have enough money to afford an Ian Allen book to write my numbers down in. So what I did was took myself onto the word processor on the computer and wrote my own lists of train numbers out. Then I would either write them in a little book while I was out and about on my various trips, and then copy them into my big box file full of train number sheets when I got home. Or if I'd forgotten my little books, I'd sometimes make a note on the back of my hand, or if I had my tape recorder with me, I'd make a note using it basically as a dictaphone to capture the numbers as well. One memorable trip was just for a bit of distraction really, to Northallerton Station one particular day in August 2002, and that was a fantastic trip out because really got to see stuff belting through there, because the line speed through Northallerton is 125 miles an hour, and back in those days it was, all the cross-country services, or the vast majority of the cross-country services were the Virgin HSTs, and you used to scream through Northallerton, and obviously the GNER ones did as well. It was really exhilarating. And I remember from that trip in Northallerton, I got some wonderful photos, some not very good ones as well. I've got a lovely one of HST Power Car 43103, and I remember looking at the nameplates as well. So that one had a nameplate, and it was called Helston Furry Dance. And I remember looking at it at the time thinking, what a strange name that is. It's just, I don't know. There was 43093 as well, which was Lady in Red, so that was another sort of famous one, and that's a power car that's still with us to this day. My horizons continued to expand, so we had plenty of family holidays to other places such as Wales, where I got to discover things like the Great Little Trains of Wales, so all the miniature trains there, which are things like the Fairborn Railway, the Vale of Rydal Railway, which is the one from Aberystwyth to Devil's Bridge, things like the Great Orme Tramway, the Snowdon Mountain Railway, all that sort of things. And then you got to appreciate just beautiful scenery, like on the Cambrian coast. Again, there's this fantastic bridge which links the Cambrian Coast Railway between Fairborn and Barmouth. And it's called Barmouth Bridge, and it's one of the longest wooden bridges. I'd just finished school, and the time to go to college was fast approaching as well. So after a summer of working my first sort of temporary job, which was quite an interesting experience, but another story altogether, I started college and spent most of the weekends just out chasing trains, which was absolutely perfect. So by this time, a lot of my friends had discovered girls, or a lot of the friends who were girls had discovered boys, but I was out chasing trains. And taking plenty of pictures and taking plenty of videos, and it's only now really that I feel like those years were definitely not wasted. And I'm in a lot of sort of Facebook groups these days that share railway photos, share bits of railway video, and I've just got so much to share. So the time invested in doing stuff like that back then, it's really paid off now, and I really, really enjoy sharing all that kind of stuff, not just the photos, but the stories that go along with those photos as well. So all the journeys that I went on to get them, because, you know, for a 17 and 18-year-old, I really pushed myself to, like, get out and go all over the place as much as possible. I did, towards the end of college, I did meet my friend Andrew. Now, Andrew wasn't in my year, he was in the year below me. It turned out that he liked trains too, and somebody saw him, one of my friends saw him showing some of his friends his model trains, and they're like, "Oh, go and talk to him, Stephen, go and talk to him, look, he's got trains." Oh, okay. We got on like a house on fire, and we soon started doing model train stuff together, because again, that was something that featured throughout my life as well. I wasn't just watching the real thing, I was playing with the little trains too. So once me and Andrew started doing that together, that was really, really, it was quite exciting. And I think for me as well, obviously I knew other people who were in the hobby, but the exciting thing there was, it was nice to finally have somebody who was virtually the same age as me to do that with, because everybody else who had done model railway stuff with before was like 40, 50 plus years older than me. I mean, and that's fine, but to actually have somebody your own age do it with was actually really, really nice. So that was quite a special time. And again, without digressing too much, that actually led to Andrew's mum's friend ended up meeting my dad because of me and Andrew doing this with little trains, and they ended up getting married. So again, you know, little trains can lead to big places, you know. But yes, I've got absolutely no regrets about how I spent those years, because they were really, really exciting and quite adventurous. For my 18th birthday, the family all grouped together, put money in, and bought me a really, really good video camera, because I was using the other one so much. It was one of those that had the 8mm tapes, and obviously it's just like a miniature video player. And they don't last forever, and they do wear out, and basically that's what was happening to the one I had, or the one that my dad had given me, because I just used it and used it and used it to death. So I bought a really nice video camera for my 18th birthday. So naturally, well, I had to go out and test it. So within a couple of days of being given it, I was out on the Tyne Valley Railway between Newcastle and Carlisle. So every year, between the end of September and the beginning of November, on a weekend, the East Coast Main Line closes between Newcastle and Edinburgh, which means all the services divert via Carlisle. So that meant getting HSTs over a route that you don't get them on, and it was brilliant. So I was getting loads of video of them, heads out the window, filming them along this. It is a really nice route. The scenery is stunning, and it follows the River Tyne for the most part of it. It follows Hadrian's Wall for another part of it. It's a beautiful route. It is one of my favourite runs in the, you know, out of all the railways in the country. It's absolutely stunning. So yeah, had a nice day in Carlisle testing my new video camera out. Really started pushing the boundaries further with my travelling as well. Because I, you know, as long as it was daylight, I'd be out watching trains. You know, there was no sort of coming home halfway through a day. No, I'd be out even when it was dark, because sometimes being able to get a bus home from Darlington meant that I had to be out for quite a long time, because they were few and far between. There was one particular time, and I remember this was the last day. It was the day before New Year's Eve, 2006, going into 2007. I really pushed the boundaries out, because one of my missions, I decided, was to capture as much of the Valenta-powered HSTs while they were working on GNER. So while they were absolutely screaming and thrashing and smoking and just sounding amazing. And of course, I've got this wonderful new camera that's really high quality. So I want to fill it with high quality, like, action like that. Brilliant. Because one of the things that was happening at the time was the refurbishment program of the HSTs was starting, and that meant they weren't going to scream and smoke or anything like that anymore. They were going to be fitted with the new German MTU engines, which were quieter, more efficient, and better passenger experience, but perhaps not better experience for the rail enthusiast. So my mission was to get as many of these as possible. And I remember the first pair of power cars that GNER had with the new MTU engines came out, and I was like, I'm not sure whether I should get these. And those power cars were 43,300 and 43,290. Anyway, I was on one of my adventures on a Saturday. I decided I was going to Doncaster, so got me tickets, and then this pair of HST power cars pulled in on the train that I wanted to catch. Like, looks like I'm getting the new ones today. So I did them from Darlington to Doncaster, filmed them going, filmed a few bits at Doncaster, and I was like, you know what? I'm quite a long way down the country already, and I've never been to London before, and I've still got some money left over for my 18th, so you know what? I'm just going to have to go and buy a ticket to London. I remember it was £40 and 45p day return from Doncaster to London at the time. So I went to London, and then the obviously found the brand new HST power cars were there, so they were on the next train back. And thought, you know what? I'll go and get them again. So I spent all of half an hour in London before coming home again. Although I did ring my dad, who was absolutely, who was very bewildered when I said, "Oh, by the way, Dad, I'm not coming home for tea tonight." And he's like, "Oh, why not?" And my reply was, "Oh, because I'm in London." And he was like, "You what?" Yeah, just nip to London for not even for the day, just for half an hour. And he really, really couldn't believe how silly I was. But it was very exciting. It was very exciting. I was really getting out there. And I was doing the similar sort of things. I mean, I carried it on. And inevitably, after college, I went to university. And again, new horizons opened up. So I only went to Teesside University. I didn't exactly move far away, but there were plenty of opportunities to watch trains because lectures and seminars were only 3 days a week, which left you with 2 days to study, because obviously it was meant to be full-time if you're studying for a degree. And of course, Teesside was wonderful for freight and all kinds of different things back then. One of the absolutely fantastic sort of temporary workings that was going on was a weekly run into Haverton Hill. And it was a DRS job. They used to bring a couple of wagons down from Carlisle, take them into Haverton Hill for repair, and take the previous week's ones back. But it was such a wonderful working because it used to throw up all kinds of variety of traction. We had 37s on it, Class 20s, 66s, and even at one point was 47712 dragging 86901 on it as well, which was just phenomenal to get a Class 86 in Stockton Station. It's not something that happens very often. You don't often get electric locos that far from under the wires. I measured my rail mileage each year. I know there's apps and things for doing it now, but back at university I was putting it all in an Excel spreadsheet, organising it meticulously. And my 2010 rail mileage, which is the last year of university, I did 4,500 miles. And quite a lot of that was on the 15-mile stretch between Darlington and Middlesbrough and back, because I used to bounce there and back all the time. I was going backwards and forwards on a weekend. Me and Andy had a railway night, which we did as well, which was really, really good fun. And railway night used to take place on a Wednesday, so I was going backwards and forwards on the Wednesday as well. So it was, really nice. During my first year of university is when the financial crash happened and everything basically went wrong with the economy. Obviously, Northern Rock disappeared and all that sort of thing, and it was just absolutely shocking. Inevitably, when I did finish university, that meant getting a job was not going to be an easy feat. I ended up going to like all kinds of job interviews, and I ended up finally working for Tesco, which was only meant to be a temporary thing, but I ended up doing 9 years there and 7 years as a manager. But Tesco was my 150th job application. That's how desperate things were. But I did have interviews from some of the other applications, and one of the interviews I had was with Greggs, of all places. And when I had the interview with Greggs, the person doing the interview asked me, "What's like long term? What's your career goal long term?" I didn't get this job, and probably because my answer to her question was, "One day I want to work on the railway," which is something I always knew I wanted to do. And of course, Tesco was meant to be a temporary job, but like I say, I was there 9 years, and 7 of those years I was a manager for my sins. But in the meantime, while I was applying for all these jobs, I started volunteering on the Wensleydale Railway, And that was quite good fun, because then that gave me a bit of railway experience that I wouldn't have got otherwise. And I ended up doing all sorts there. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I was there not even a year, but the opportunities I was presented were absolutely fantastic. So I ended up working in Beedale Signal Box. I was second manning locomotives, being the extra set of eyes and ears for the driver. I qualified as a level crossing keeper, and I ended up being involved in a project for a junior volunteer group in which we went to the local school, had a recruitment drive for the junior volunteers, and then helped run some of the classes to sort of bring them into the railway and sort of bring them up to speed with how the railway works. So again, that was quite interesting and not something I'd ever expected I would do. Once I started working full time, I bought a car. And then, of course, more new horizons opened, because now I could get myself around without relying on public transport. I then started going on what I classed as extravagant holidays, although most of my friends were scratching their heads when I told them my holiday destinations. So my first holiday by myself was my holiday to Dawlish. And of course, walking along the seawall, filming all the trains, like obviously HSTs, Voyagers, the Pacers that they had down there. It was just, it was paradise. Followed by the next year, I took myself off to Felixstowe to go and see all the intermodal traffic in and out of there, like in and out of Ipswich, Manningtree, and all that Anglia area is very, very busy in terms of passenger and freight, so there's plenty to see. But I think the pinnacle of those kind of holidays was me and Andy decided to go and do a European railway trip, and meticulously planned it months in advance. Went absolutely brilliantly. We caught the train from Darlington to St Pancras, Eurostar to Paris, Paris to Turin, had a night in Turin, then next day via Milan to Venice. A couple of days in Venice, caught the train to Rome and flew back. It was absolutely fantastic to go and experience some European railways. Catching the TGV through the Alps, it's an experience I seriously recommend. Although one of the quirks of that trip was we had to change trains in Paris because the Eurostar goes into Gare du Nord, and our train to Turin left from Gare de Lyon. So we caught the underground under Paris and off we went. So I was in Paris for 45 minutes and I didn't see the Eiffel Tower, and that's my one and only trip to Paris. So the Eiffel Tower is still on my bucket list. I started seeing a bit more of my friend Jamie around this time as well. So Jamie lives in Scotland, near Inverness. And we started having adventures as well. We went to places like Barnetby, which doesn't sound that adventurous. It's only in Lincolnshire. However, there's a lot of traffic there. We started just travelling all around Scotland, doing all kinds of daft trips. Perhaps one of the daftest was I had a couple of days in Inverness with my dad. Jamie came back with me. I bought some station signs because I'm a bit of a hoarder and I like to collect things. So I saw a couple of station signs up for sale, raise money for charity. Now, these two station signs were Middlesbrough and Northallerton, and they were just something that I had to have because Middlesbrough is obviously where I lived for Teesside University, and Northallerton was where I was born, so right, I've got to have these. It was Northern Rail who were selling them off, so brilliant. Bought them, had to go and pick them up from Crewe. So after catching the train back from Inverness to Darlington, me and Jamie then drove to Crewe to pick these signs up, but we were also on our own railway adventure as well. So after Crewe, we drove up to Carlisle to go and stay the night there, so we could go and catch the 37s on the Cumbrian coast the following day, and it was just it's just a bit mad, really. It's a very long way to get to Carlisle via Crewe from Darlington. The biggest adventure me and Jamie had was our all-line rover. So there is a ticket available called the all-line rover. It's available as a 1 or a 2 week ticket, and we did a 1 week ticket where you basically get unlimited travel on Britain's railways any time of the day for a whole week. So we meticulously planned a route, meticulously planned places to stay, and we just went for it. So we used real-time trains to go and plan which trains we wanted to catch, and we had a fantastic time doing it. Really, really sort of exciting week. Got all over the country. We did 3,783 miles in total in that week, and it was just bliss. There wasn't a crossword between us. We just had fun. But we introduced an element of challenge to it, in that we wanted to reach all 4 points of the railway compass on the mainland during this trip. We actually failed to do it because I got given some duff information. So the point that the most extreme points of the railway compass are Wick on the far north line in Scotland, The most easterly one is Lowestoft. The furthest south is Penzance, but someone had also told me that Penzance was the furthest west as well. So we did those three and thought, brilliant, that's it, job done. Well, actually, it turns out the furthest west station is Arisaig, which is on the line from Fort William to Mallaig. We went around shouting about this wonderful thing we'd achieved, and actually we didn't. So we both felt rather stupid, and then a couple of years later ended up driving to Arisaig just to say that we'd done it then. So we have now covered all 4 points of the railway compass. And again, I love doing little challenges like that and doing silly trips like that. So the following year, I did an all-liner over by myself in January. So anyone who's worked in retail knows that at Christmas, retail is absolutely horrendous. I would always take myself off for a silly holiday in January to de-stress after Christmas, because it is that hard in retail. So I did an all-liner over by myself and covered 4,400 miles in a week, which is a little bit more extreme than the first one me and Jamie did, but made more extreme by the fact that one of the things I planned was a Sunday, and I worked out you could get from London King's Cross to London Euston via Edinburgh, which is what I did. So this was the final day of my trip. So I did London King's Cross to Euston via Edinburgh, walked back to King's Cross, and then caught the train back to Northallerton where I'd dumped my car. And that was 1,127 miles. That's the longest I've ever travelled. Like, the furthest I've ever travelled on a train in a day before. It was absolutely bonkers. The next challenge me and Jamie decided to do was in June of the same year, of 2019. So in June 2019, we decided, right, we'll copy what Jeff and Vicky, the ones who visited all the stations in the UK, did, which was basically to do the longest single train journey in the UK on the longest day of the year. So that's the Aberdeen to Penzance, which is one cross-country Voyager throughout, on the longest day of the year, covering a distance of 775 miles in 13 hours and 45 minutes. And I tell you what, that is one very long time to stay on one Voyager for. Again, one of the other things with 2019 was I started sharing my videos on YouTube a long time ago. And, they've been reasonably well watched. The previous July, in July 2018, I filmed a video on the Wensleydale Railway of one of their visiting engines, which was 35018 British India Line. Didn't even bother with my tripod. I quickly filmed it handheld from a couple of viewpoints one morning before I had to go to work. I was on a late start, so like a 1 o'clock start. Nipped out, filmed it, came home, put it on YouTube, and then thought nothing more of it. So it had been on YouTube about 8 months, and it had 45,000 views, which I thought that's quite good. It was my third most watched video on YouTube. I was quite happy with that. Anyway, in April 2019, it just started to go a bit crazy. And I looked at it one day, and it had about 200,000 views. I was like, gosh, that's gone up quick. And then it hit 500,000. I was like, it's now my most watched video on YouTube ever. Like, interesting. And then I remember the date, because it sticks in my mind. It was the 3rd of April, 2019. It hit 1 million views. I'm like, goodness me, this is unbelievable. I've got a video with 1 million views. This is incredible. Wow. But then it just got bigger and bigger, faster and faster. So then it was 2, 3, 4, 5 million views, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50. And I was like, when's this going to stop? And it hit 60 million. And it took quite a while to get to 65 million. And it seems to have settled down now around 67 million views in total on the channel. And I was like, goodness me, this is unbelievable. It must be one of the most watched train videos on all of YouTube. And obviously, it's a bit of a one-hit wonder, because my next video behind that in terms of views it's still got 500,000, but obviously it's lagging way behind. But that level of views earned me my YouTube Silver Award for gaining 100,000 subscribers. And it was quite a proud moment, because I don't personally know anybody else who's got one of them. I mean, you see all these YouTube stars and influencers, as they like to call them, with things like this, and they always do a big unboxing video of receiving their award. So I did that too. But it was quite a proud moment. I thought there's not many people who've done this. And then, of course, the latest trend, you've got Francis Bourgeois, who has his GoPro on his head, and he does his own thing with trains. It's not probably what I would do, but he enjoys the hobby, so why not? But I got the awards before he was famous, so I'm quietly very smug about that. Although, to be fair, he is a Gucci model, and I don't think I'm ever going to be one of them. I don't have the face for that. So. Yeah, so I'm that I was really pleased, but the surprises didn't end there in 2019, because in the middle of that year, I finally realised my dream and got a job on the railway. So now, I plan trains during the day, I come home and play with my models and all that sort of stuff at night, so it's great, my life is just trains. I also do video editing as well, not just my own video, but I was very fortunate during lockdown, to get into contact with Lieutenant Pigeon's Nigel Fletcher, because I had some of his railway videos from when I was younger. Now, one of the things he had on one of his railway videos was this shot of Beedale. So I sent him a message asking him if he'd taken any more video at Beedale, and explained that I'd worked in the signal box there. So that was why I was interested in seeing any more that he might have. Anyway, we got chatting and just kept messaging backwards and forwards. And now I'm working on quite a big project for him. So editing his railway videos from the 90s and uploading them to YouTube and sort of documenting and all kinds of bits and pieces with them. So it's been quite an interesting journey, really. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot more to come, but I've definitely not had. I'm only 33 years old, and I've definitely not had the average life, shall we say. So yeah, trains have formed a massive part of my life, and I think they will continue to do so, because I honestly feel that if I was going to have lost interest in the hobby, I would have done it way before now. Because I know some people find girls and forget about trains, but then come back to it in later life, or some just don't. Yeah, really interesting. I'm really, really pleased with everything I've achieved so far. Definitely.